On today's video, part 2 of Lost Kingdom 76, and in this video we have some madness going on. This is an especially long video as we're gonna go over the war that 602 went through and a few interesting things that happened along the way, some upsets, and all of a sudden the world turns on its head. Lots of crazy reports and awesome rallies with stats that y'all need to keep an eye on, so sit back, drop a like on the video, and let's go. Hey there YouTube, welcome back to Gekko Gaming. Last we talked about Lost Kingdom 76. This fort was being built, and now that it's built, it is time to start covering the war. In this video, we're gonna go over a pretty big chunk of the timeline where the folks in blue went up against the folks in red, and we have also green with a little bit of purple fights along the way, then blue goes up against purple. There's a big chunk of a time in this KVK. We're gonna keep showing you the map, and the reason we're doing this is to illustrate to you the storyline of how what ended up happening in this fairly crazy Lost Kingdom happened. The folks in purple are in deep trouble as the red team in 610 are pounding on 621, and things are not looking good at all. On top of that, the folks in green are now building up drastically, and 603 are trying to take over this area. They found themselves someone out of position and started rallying and swarming it up. And here's the thing. I want y'all to not only enjoy an awesome fight, but we're going to talk through some strategy, talk through some of the dynamics of this KVK, just in general, not only for your entertainment, but for your general knowledge as well. Before we start with all of this though, I am a sponsored content creator by Rise of Kingdoms. Consider dropping a like and subscribing to the channel as Omega takes a massive rally and comes out of it really well. Omega did a really cool thing in here. His defense in his current setup was Charles Martel Sun 2, which is not the worst possible garrison available. Of course, a Isong A would have been nicer, but his Isong A was probably out on the field doing its thing. And so a Sun 2 is a great pick with Charles Martel at the front. That was a very, very, very strong defense on a rally coming at him from W610. You can see all of the stats right here. But curiously enough, he realized that there was another rally coming up, and this rally coming next was going to be the same rally. He switched up his defense to a Saladin Khan defense, which was really weird. I'm guessing he had a couple of marches out. I don't know why he would have changed this. Maybe this is not his city. It looks like his city, but hey, anyway, there's like some madness going on in there. Green versus purple have been going at it for quite a bit. The thing about it was that it was very obvious very quickly that the purple kingdom was getting demolished very, very quickly. Now, it took me a little bit until you guys reminded me. We actually covered a lot this kingdom in the past. We covered Kingdom 621 having a massive civil war happen in their kingdom. Card up on the top right if you haven't seen that video. They got they had a group that pretty much went in to destroy their kingdom, and so they're past the civil war. They're having a tough time coming in, and at this point in the timeline and in the stories and in my understanding of what was going on, I mean, they were just a weaker kingdom, but there is something else about this that's a little fishy and smelly, and we're going to go over that in the later part of this video. So if you want to know what happened with the purple team and the guys of 621, you won't even believe it. Remind you, this is Lost Kingdom Season 2, and this is a 4v4 scenario that was kind of preemptively built. Like I mentioned to you all, once the red team allowed blue to build those fortresses up, red was in a very, very big problem. Because at this point, blue had already shown they're capable of holding onto a fort that they were building way away from their cities. Now, their cities are by the fort and by the flags, and they have access to rally red flags and demolish red flags out. And this puts red team on a really, really big problem. Now, you're going to see the map a few times in this video. I did this on purpose for y'all to understand a little bit of the structure of how this KVK worked out. But if I can put a picture in your head of how it kind of went, it was like the red team pushed out of there. Everybody's on the top zone. So the red team pushed out of their side and started going deeper into that zone 6 and cutting in towards blue. Blue kind of dropped forts and tried to hold on to it. Green, on the other hand, really stayed up close to the areas where the borders and the walls of that zone were and just built straight towards purple. Purple kind of did the same. They didn't really push down towards the zone. They maintained themselves at the top area. And for a very long time, I did not really realize what was going on there. But as time went on, it seemed that green were just positioning themselves so that, as you can see, as my camera goes a little crazy, apologies for that. As you can see, once they were in a decent enough place where they can start wrapping around blue, they started doing that. They started building up flags to be able to double and triple rally with the red team. And on top of that, they had their flags running across that zone, aiming at the passes that were blue and purple. Well, I believe they're both blue. I don't really remember if it was a purple pass as well or not. The blue team was not paying attention to green. At that point, it was like, purple, y'all deal with green, please. We got red on our backs. And as you can see, this is what happened. It's like green came out and they started first going in this direction, and only then they went downwards once they started securing this area. And to make matters worse, it was like red caused a scenario where there was like red, green, and then a red again, kind of closing out that missing top area, just not allowing for purple to push straight towards the pass, kind of creating a blockade. At this stage, lag was just, again, tremendously big. We're talking probably like 3 or 4 hours into the fighting, and this was unsimplified graphics once more. There was a rally somewhere in there along the way, and the king skills caused so much lag. It is crazy. So we're not going to keep an eye on this too much, but just so you know, even now, months later, same map, we've been doing this for a long time, Lilith. The lag is still there, and now you're piling on with alliance, with kingdom skills, even further that lag. That was just too much, Lilith, too much, man. Come on, fix the damn lag. Anyway, 602 in blue, we're consistently fighting 610 in red. And for the longest time, I was like, these guys have this secured in their bag. They're pretty much taking out what seemed to be the biggest kingdom. It seems like red team are just falling on the seams, like what is going on here. And then I realized, green and yellow have annihilated the bottom area. They were fighting pink, and they were just annihilating stuff there. And I realized that green was really staying out of the fight. They were not fighting blue at all. They fought purple and didn't really fight purple because purple didn't seem to be there, right? Purple seemed to just barely fight. I didn't see one rally out of them. I didn't see them defending a flag too much. I didn't see anything of them. I just saw them being taken out like no one's business. And in the meantime, red is just trying to keep the folks in blue like at bay for, I guess, waiting for green in some shape or form. Blue were no suckers. 602 started pushing, and they pushed hard. Their fortresses kept getting rallied again and again by the same people. Instead of rallying flags and double rallying and triple rallying, it was the same rally going against the same fort again and again, and that fort were just holding forever. And on top of that, blue didn't care. Blue was flagging forward, burning red flags, and just trying to get to that red pass all the way on the right side to try to close that pass away from red team and close that avenue of attack by their opposition. This is where I want to stop for a moment. And first of all, give a small shout out to Misty Hill. She's up on the top screen. She's one of our members in the channel. Very cool person, has been supporting the channel for forever. But for the record, the strategy that 602 utilized was not wrong. What they were looking for is they were going to pick up the fight with the enemy that's the closest enemy, and they're just going to push them out of the zone. They were also relying on the fact that they had an ally in that zone, right? They have purple. I mean, purple is on their team, right? They should be helping, right? These reports fighting against flags. I mean, literally every single one of these red buildings ended up going down. Misty rallying here, a flag very, very successfully with an Edward Tamaris rally. It was defended by Wuzetian Isongye. Edward and Tamaris doing work against Wuzetian is a testament to the fact that 610 wasn't necessarily like the strongest of kingdoms in that group for a very long while. I could have sworn they were the goats, right? They were the ones that are going to handle the business here. But Misty's, first of all, Misty's rally is very, very nice. But it was just doing massive amounts of damage. And it seems like 610 was just not filling their flags correctly. Or I don't know what they were doing, but it just wasn't working. I mean, 3 million slightly woundeds and 500,000 deads means that they were refilling the flag, but something was just odd. Something was just odd about this whole scenario. And so Blue did what Blue should be doing, which is push their opposition back to their zone. If you are in KVK Season 1 or 2, what you need to understand is that there are some very specific important areas on the map that you really want to take advantage of. And the number one thing is you have to be able to recognize which territory is meaningful territory and which territory is territory that you don't really need to chase after because there is better territory to go after. And that was where Blue fell a little bit, because Blue went on and dropped fortresses, and they took a center area in that zone. But while they took the center area and started working towards getting rid of red from that center area, Green and Red in a different alliance were working towards closing a meaningful side of the zone, which wasn't the side where the passes for the next zone were, but actually the passes from where you came in. Locking someone out of a zone requires a couple of things, and obviously you want to get rid of all their territory, and that's how you get rid of them, but you also have to be able to distract them, divert their attention, and get them to act in certain ways and in certain areas while you're taking advantage in other areas. And I think that 602, looking in hindsight and knowing how it all turned out, and looking at the whole situation as it was, I don't know if 610 and if 610 in red and 603 in yellow and in green planned this out or not, but it seems very obvious right now that the folks in red were bait. What they were doing is they were fighting, and it makes more sense now as to why they allowed the fortress to build and why they kept getting pushed back and why they were doing damage but never really winning anything. They'd burn a flag here and there and they'd do something here and there, but they were never on the winning side of this. And it seems that at this point, all that Red was doing was they were playing bait. They were distracting 602 while the folks, 602 in blue, while the folks of 603 in green were slowly and steadily picking up meaningful territory that was going towards the entrance pass, and also was setting itself up so that once they started flagging downwards, as you can see, they started doing that in the reach red territory. Once they start flagging downwards, they either wait until blue flags towards them, or they wait until red's flags burn and then they start flagging downwards. And when that happened, they set like a nice line worth of flags where they can go down at any point of blue's territory and essentially try to chop it up. That didn't really work out in their favor, and by the way, we got a ton more reports showing up on the screen. That really didn't work out in their favor that much early on in the stages of this fight, because blue had not done the conventional flagging, which was go from the pass through the territory all the way towards red, but rather they dropped the fortress in the middle and then went towards red that way. Now, when that happened, essentially all that line worth of green flags was less useful, but it still got to very meaningful places on the map, which were the passes that led from the zone 5 that blue and purple had to the zone 6 that they were fighting in. And so at this stage, red is taking a beating. Red is losing flags, losing fortresses. Blue is flagging towards the passes at a very rapid pace. And they got as deep as getting with a flag, building right next to where the red pass was. If that flag was dropped successfully, and it might have been dropped successfully, I went to sleep, woke up, and it wasn't there anymore. If they managed to drop it, they could have potentially taken a pass away from red. Taking a pass into the zone 5 of your opposition is actually substantially smarter and better than taking over the zone 6 as a whole. And the reason for that is once you get into your opposition zone 5, you can start messing with their circles, with their altar. You can take away a lot of their energy and divert them very, very much. You can see blue was really deep into red territory. They were burning flags. Red really lost their footing in this zone entirely. And I was like, once that flag burns, all of these people along this line, including the King's Farm and Run and all of these guys, all of them would have been zeroed essentially. There'd be open field, right? Like this is inactive flags, easy to rally. And so blue really took over a ton of territory. But like I told you, once they took over red territory, they ran into green. Either they flagged downwards towards green, which in this case they did. You can see some W610 folks there. And green did something really, really, really interesting. They double flagged to a point where their territory was wide enough to allow a few flags to burn. And they really didn't care specifically for this area. This was the middle area of their territory. And it seemed for a very, very short while that blue was gonna easily take care of the green guys, right? But as you can see, green and red are focused on that purple pass. And that's what made green so interesting. Green went from, they went down and they went sideways. And the down part essentially distracted blue long enough, with red distracting blue long enough so that the side part was going out towards the passes and taking out passes one by one. On this side of the map, yellow was really beating up everything. They were destroyed. They destroyed 605. No disrespect to 605. The 622 were insane, and you guys know this. You guys fought them. You guys put in terms of 605 a really strong offensive and really strong defense. But honestly, like baby blue and pink just got demolished by green and yellow really quickly. Turns out that green and yellow are the bigger fighters in this KVK alongside 602. But the problem is 602 found itself facing 610, which were relatively strong and fairly good at what they were doing, which is distracting. They found themselves up against 603, and then they told themselves, okay, well, we got a friend in purple, 621, right? Well, turns out that 621 was never in the game. That's right. I told y'all I'll tell you something about 621 in the beginning of the video, right? Well, it turns out 621 betrayed their allies. That is right. Apparently, 625 was never even fighting. 625, 625, wow, why am I saying 625? They're not 625, 621. 621 of purple, turns out, created a separate deal for rewards with the opposition. So it was red, orange, yellow, and green against baby blue, blue, purple, and pink. However, turns out that purple wasn't really here, but rather wasn't here either. It was like on the side by themselves. And they're like, well, we're not in this team, but we're gonna do like an exchange of rewards or something like that. So it turns out that 602, after trying their very best to get that zone and asking for help from 621 and trying to figure out why their allies are not helping, their allies had made a deal behind their back, and pretty much they never fought green or red one instance. They allowed green and red. Yes, I showed them burning a green fortress. I think that was all shenanigans at that point. Red and green were just flagging towards the passes. They picked up the passes. They picked up everything. And all of a sudden, blue found themselves in a world of pain. Because they went from destroying 610 in red to the point where they were almost at their pass to all of a sudden having to deal with green. And when they had to deal with green turned on. I mean, green of 603 turned on big time. And on top of that, 610 now are like, well, it's time to stop being the distraction and time to start beating stuff up. And they started going in. And within like 5 hours, everything blue had gained went out the window. It seemed to me, in hindsight, looking at it after, and this was a few days ago, it seems that red of 610 were playing bait for a little bit. They allowed 602 to get to strategic positions thinking that they're in control. They allowed green to get themselves in a better position. And once the whole thing was set up, 602 all of a sudden found themselves, the folks in blue, found themselves between red and green that they had not seen doing all of this before. They might have been ready for this, but those two came out swinging. They came out swinging, and the backstab was real. Before we go, though, we'll finish up this report. We have one more video to wrap up this Lost Kingdom, which was really a sad tale for 602, a kingdom that fought like crazy. They really did everything right, most of the things right, but yet in some shape or form, they got slightly baited, slightly ahead of themselves a little bit, and very much backstabbed. And that was one of the craziest KVK turnarounds I've ever seen, right? Because you go from really breaking everything and being so far ahead, burning all the flags and like being like, yeah, we're almost there, to all of a sudden realizing we got baited, we got played, and we got backstabbed, and oh my goodness, we're fighting for our pass. And all of a sudden, things went from really, really, really good to terribly bad within a matter of hours. But we will cover that portion of this story in the next video, where we will wrap up our series of Lost Kingdom 76. Mad shout out to all the kingdoms involved in this KVK. Thank you all very much for all your information and everything along the way. There's still time for those of you who I haven't talked to, which is everybody with the exception of 602, to hit me up, tell me a little bit more about your strategies, about your stories, send me some reports, all that. I'm in Kingdom 59. I'm in JWM. I'm Gekko. I'll see y'all sooner rather than later. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and take care. Have a good one. Peace.